we go. All right, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to, I'll explain why I'm doing this later, but I'm gonna put the background inside the draw loop. Let me talk about this whole setup and function, setup and draw functions that are in here. These are basically the only two functions that are really absolutely required for P5 sketch. They're functions that are baked into P5. And the way they work is setup, as it says, is sets the canvas and any other kind of modes that you're using. So setup, when your program first opens and first starts to run, setup is the first thing that happens. So all of the instructions between these two brackets are run one time at the beginning of the program, just once. And then in draw, this is a loop. So inside of draw, everything between these brackets is happening over and over and over again for as many frames as your computer device is able to render, which is usually on a laptop about 60 frames a second, something like that. You know, it might get a little laggy if you got a lot of stuff going on. And you can actually adjust that frame rate if you want to. Sometimes that comes in handy. So I'm just putting the background inside of the draw function, and I will explain why I'm doing that later. I just tend to, that's the first thing I do when I start. And I took out the circle that was being drawn. So I'm going to make this white. By the way, the shortcut for running your program is Command Return. Just a little tip there. So we were talking about color, and we went over how if you say fill or stroke or anything like that, or you know, you can put color in the background as well. If you give it one number, it's a grayscale. It's a 0 to 255. If you give it three numbers, you get red, green, and blue in that order. So if I say Rex, I'll put it 200, 200, 150, 150. Okay, I've got just gonna put no stroke on here. I've got a rectangle right there. So, so it's working in RGB, but there's another, there are other color modes that you can use. And one of them is HSB. So I don't know if you guys went over this in your like GD37 or your basic computer graphics course, all the different color spaces, color modes that you can use. They're just different ways of encoding color information. And the way HSB works is that HSB stands for hue, saturation, and brightness, or some people call it balance. Hue, saturation, and sometimes it's called HSV for hue, saturation, value. It's all the same thing. So in P5, it's called HSB. And the way that works is you're giving it three numbers, but there's a different range here. The first number is 0 through 360, and that's the hue. So 0 being red, and then going through the different numbers and the spectrum, the hue of it goes through the spectrum of color, and then goes back to red again at 360. The next two numbers are this one, the middle one is saturation, and it goes from 0 to 100. So that's how basically how saturated the color is, like how intense the hue is. And the last one is brightness, which is basically like how much gray or black is in the color. So it's kind of like muted. You can play with that number to sort of make the colors more muted. So what I like to do sometimes when I'm playing with color is my brain, I don't think in RGB, like that's just like a, you know, how much red, how much green, how much blue. It's hard for me to sort of estimate a color that way. So I will go up into the setup and I will change the color mode, and I will change it to HSB. And now the numbers that I put into the fill or the stroke or the background are going to be in HSV. So if I say, I'm going to put these at 100, 100, so it's full saturation, full brightness, and I say 0, we get red. If I say 150, we get green, and I can just play with these numbers. And I'll show you more ways that this comes in really handy by when you make it interactive. So you can make something that cycles, the color constantly changes. It cycles through the spectrum depending on the mouse or depending on the time, how much time has passed or anything like that. You can sort of animate the color, and it's just easier, I think, to do it. Then you're just adjusting one value instead of having to adjust all three of the RGB, that sort of thing. Any questions about that? HSB? And that's a good lesson in just computer graphics in general. And in case you're curious, like if you go into, you've seen this color picker many times in many different places. And sometimes it's a circle and sometimes it's a square. And basically right here, this is the hue. So you see the H over here changing from 360 back down to 0 to back up to red again. So it starts again from the middle. So you can think of this as a wheel, like 360 degrees around a wheel, it comes back around. And then the saturation is the up and down here, and the value, or this is the saturation, I guess, and the value is the up and down. So that's how, you know, these numbers are derived. And you've used this picker many times, so you probably didn't even realize you're adjusting hue, saturation, and see it's V here for value, but some people use, you know, B for brightness. So, and down here they actually have percentages. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, so that's a little lesson on color. We can look up color mode in here. There are other, let's see, color mode. We look it up in the reference. We can set RGB, and you can set a different value for what you want the range to be. I usually just leave it as the regular range. There's also HSL. I've never used HSL. I actually don't. I'm not sure the difference between HSB and HSL. I think L stands for lightness. I'm not really totally sure the difference there, but anyway, there's color mode for you. And it'll affect the background, it'll affect the stroke color, it'll affect anytime you put any color into your code. So I'm going to back up here a second, and I want to go over leave this one. I want to point some things out. So you may have noticed there's just cool things going on here where the position of the circle that's being drawn is constantly changing with the mouse. And if you go over here, you might have noticed that there's a mouse X and a mouse Y. Well, there are certain built-in words in processing that will return a certain value to you, and you can use that value. So this mouse X stands for the X position of the mouse Y stands for the Y position of the mouse. And so what's happening is as this program is looping through in the draw loop, this number is constantly being updated as the mouse moves around. So we can use this to do interactive things and have, you know, our graphics respond to the user's input. But one thing that's really interesting here is that it's drawing the circle over and over again. And watch what happens if I do this. I'm going to take the background and I'm going to put it into the draw function instead of into the setup function. And now I'm going to run it. And now I'm not getting that trail anymore. And what's going on here is that every single time through the loop, background is usually the first thing in the draw loop. Every single time through the loop, it's drawing the background again. So it's wiping out what it drew the last time through the loop. So it's, yeah, so if you don't want a trail, sometimes you want a trail, sometimes you don't. So if you just want something to stay static and, you know, if something's moving around on the screen and you want it to just appear like one thing is moving, you would make sure that the background, usually you have the background function inside of the draw loop. So again, if I comment that out and run this, again, I'm going to get that trail right there. You can play around with it. You can get some pretty cool effects. So like, for example, instead of ellipse, I say line. And now I'm getting this line that's starting at 2020 and it's ending up where the mouse is. And then if I turn off the background and run it, I'm getting this sort of pattern, which is kind of cool. So you can make interesting drawing tools. And one of the projects we're going to do soon is creating an actual drawing program where the user can draw to the screen in different types of modes that you program in. So I think this effect looks kind of cool, especially if you give it some transparency. So if I give the for the color, if I give two values, so the first one would be black and the second one would be the value, the transparency. So I'm gonna set transparency to 40 and I get kind of a neat effect where it's sort of overlapping and getting darker and darker, you know, wherever the mouse sort of slows down and repeats over itself again. Any questions about that? Does that make sense?
It's not really a question about the drawing part, but what shortcut do you use to refresh and run the code?
Oh, it's Command Return.
Okay.
And there's another really helpful shortcut that will clean up your code. So like if your tabs are all off, like that, you can press Command B and it cleans up your code for you. I love that one. That's really helpful. So everything, you know, if you have things nested, they all sort of indent and, you know, get in line. So that's a really helpful one. So what are some other things can we do that we can do with this using this mouse X function? Well, one thing, you can use it to adjust the color of something. So let me take this out. I'm going to say fill. I'm gonna leave that there for now. I'm gonna say rect. Again, I'm gonna do 200, 200, 150, 150. And for now, I'm gonna put the fill it black to make sure that's working. Okay, I've got that going on. I'm gonna make this white. Okay, what if I change the fill to the mouse X? So I'm replacing the mouse X, the fill color with the mouse position. What do you think is gonna happen? So notice that as I move the mouse, the color of the square changes. And actually, let's do this with the background. Instead of the rectangle, let's do it with the background. You can replace any number anywhere in your program with mouse X, and it's fun to just sort of experiment with it. Just throw numbers out there and see what kind of effects you get. So here's the background. The whole background is changing color as I move around by you know, substituting any kind of number with mouse X. So here it's at 0. Mouse X is at 0 right now, because remember, the origin point of 0, 0 is right up here. So it's at 0. And then as I go forward, now here it's probably at like about 100. Here it's probably like 200. And now it's probably gotten to about 255. So it's white. And then everything else after that is going to remain white because the number is over 255. So let's say, for example, we can also play with this number with a little bit of math. If we wanted it to actually take longer for it to, you wanted it to take longer, the transition to take longer, we would just have to sort of slow that number down. And we can do that pretty easily by just dividing it. So let's say we divide it by 2. So what that's going to do is when it gets to like 100, the number is actually going to be 50. And it gets to 200, the number is actually going to be 100. So it's going to take twice as much, twice as long for the color transition to happen. So you can see here it happens more slowly. We're still getting to 2. Oh wait, did I run that again? What just happened? Let me run that again. I don't think I ran it. So now it's taking a longer time to get. This isn't the best way to do it. There is a better way if I wanted to actually go to white at the very end here. There's a better way, but this is a nice down and dirty quick trick to just slow your numbers down, because it's all about data. You know what's happening on the screen. It's all about data, and anywhere there's numbers, you can substitute them with other, you know, more interactive numbers to get different effects. And that's a big part of, you know, everything we do here. What if I divide it by 3? Then it's going to take a lot longer and actually never gets to pure white over here. But, you know, does pretty good. If again, I say color mode HSB, and then I give it 3 values, it's going to use the mouse to adjust. Wait, why isn't it doing that? Oh, here we go. It's running now. Now it's adjust. So see how it's nice to switch I'm going to put that back to 2. To switch to HSB, so I only have to worry about adjusting one number to change the color. So I'm just going to go like this, and the color changes. Let me rerun that as we go across the screen, and then it goes back to red. So it's cycling through all of the colors. And this is actually going to be, let's jump over to your assignments. Like I said, I have, oh wait, let me go over something else. I'm going to switch this back to white. So we just learned that mouse X and mouse Y are these built-in, they're called variables. We'll go over variables next week. They're these built-in variables. They'll replace whatever number you would have used with the number that the computer gets for you. So let's say there are a couple more. You can also retrieve the width of the window and the height of the window. Once setup is run, whatever you put in, the values you put into here get recorded and put into the word, it's just the word width and the word height. So if I say line 0, 0, width, height, I'm going to get a line across the screen. Oh, I still have my rectangle in there. I'm going to get a line going across the screen like that, because 0, 0 is here, and then width and height is going to be down here. So so you can use those, and it's kind of nice if you wanted to, like, say I wanted this square to be directly in the center of the screen, then I would say well, let's do it one way first, and then I'll change it. If I say width divided by 2, that's going to be right in the middle, because remember, if this is 800, then 800 divided by 2 is 400. So the X position is going to be right in the middle. And then I'll change this one to height divided by 2. And you'll see that the rectangle, the square, the 0, 0 starts right in the middle and draws out from there. And remember, we can change that. We can change the 0, 0, the way that the rectangle is drawn by switching over to rect mode center. And now I draw it, and now the 0, 0 is in the middle, and that's the way you can get things to be perfectly centered in the middle of the screen, and that's really, really useful. And if you wanted it to go a quarter way over, you could divide it by 3 or divide it by 4 or something like that, and you can, have everything that way. It's more responsive, so no matter what size the window is, it's always going to be proportionally in sort of the same composition. So those are 4 built-in data variables that you can use in your program. They're automatic, and that can be really fun to play with. So you already know all the shapes. Oh, there was one more shape I wanted to go over too. Okay, we didn't go over this on Monday, but there's also one of the 2D primitive shapes. Let's see, shape is called arc. And basically what it does is you can draw arcs, like it says. And they have different fill modes. And what you're doing is you're setting a few things. You're setting the let's see if I can remember this right. The X, you're setting like a circle with these first four values. You're saying start at, this X and Y and be this width and height. So you're setting a circle and then you're telling it where to draw, how much of the circle you want it to draw. And by default, the value that it uses is are called radians. So half pi, quarter pi, pi plus a quarter pi by 2 pi. I find these really confusing. I don't think in these terms. I would rather use degrees. I'd rather say start at 0 degrees and go to 90 degrees. And so, as you can probably guess, there is a function that will change the angle mode to degrees, so you can reference those numbers instead. And it's similar to rect mode, so it's angle mode, and then degrees in all caps. And then I can go in and draw an arc. So I'm going to say arc. I'm going to start it in the middle, width divided by 2, height divided by 2. I'm going to say 200 by 200, and I want it to start at 0 degrees, 0 degrees, and go to 90 degrees. And let's see what we get. Let's see if I did this right. There we go. We got, oh, it's still doing that fill thing because I still have fill on. So I got a 90 degree. And there's different fill modes that you can play with. There's open chord, closes the shape off. Pie makes it like a pie shape. This one is, doesn't have that line. This one's like a pie without, the closed off line. So you can play with those different sort of fill shapes with the arc. So that might come in handy for your project if you have any sort of half moons or pie shape things in the painting that you're coding. That could come in handy. Any questions about that? Okay. So let's jump over to the exercises. They, correspond just with what I went over. There's 2 of them, and they're under exercises 126. And there's 2 of them. The first one I want you to do is, I've embedded some code here. Give it a chance to load. There we go. You're going to create a sketch that does this. Okay, you've got 4 lines and they start in the corners and they all meet at the mouse X. So you're going to be using the mouse X within the line function. And you're going to be using the width and the height numbers to get the different corners. So like, for example, this upper right corner would be width, because it would be width, 0, because you want it to go all the way to the right, so it would be the full width, but you don't want it to go down to the bottom, so the height would be 0. So that would be width, 0. You can figure out the other ones. So that's the first exercise. The second one is that one I was just showing you, basically where you change the background color based on the X position. So you're switching over to HSB mode, and I'd like you to sort of kind of slow down the change so it doesn't happen just to 0 to 255, but do something to the number, adjust it a little bit so that it takes longer to transition as you cross the screen. And then when you finish these, go ahead and add them to, I've made a new collection down here, collection 2. So go ahead and add your sketches into collection 2. And when you're done with that, we're not going over a ton of stuff today because I want to give you time to work on your project. So go ahead and do those, and I will be right here if you have any questions, if you get stuck on anything, if you want me to review something, I'll be right here. I'll be checking out your progress just like I did on Monday. Any questions about that? My mouse stopped working. Oh no. The trackpad works, but the mouse isn't working. Oh, there we go. All right, cool. All right. So yeah, go ahead and get started on that. And like I said, I'm right here for any questions. And I think I'm going to stop recording now. And I don't think I have anything else to say about, if you have any questions about the project too, go ahead and speak up about that too. Oh, I have a question for you actually. Since you're going to need to, when you're done with your project, you're going to need to export it and upload it to the server, through FileZilla. Do you guys still have access to your login information for the server?
I took screenshots of mine, but I don't think it's on the class files.
No, I don't have it for me because I always open it in my Canvas for the last class. So
Okay. I think you can access classes from the past. So if you go to, for example, if you go to over here to courses and you go down to all courses, I'm assuming this works the same for you. You can go down to past enrollments.
No, it doesn't. We don't have past enrollments. We just have the current ones.
yeah, we don't have the past one. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like they retire the class so you can't like go through your things in it.
So you
Yeah.
can go back and review that.
No.
That sucks.
You
Okay.
can, just so everyone knows, you can pull down everything you've ever uploaded to Canvas, no matter whether the class is there or not. So if you have something lost on Canvas that you submitted once and you want to get it back, there's a way to do that. I know it's only tangentially related, but it saved my butt a couple times.
Oh yeah, I bet. Okay, so then right now, while you guys are working on this, I'll go retrieve those passwords and stuff, and I'll put it into Canvas right now.
Also, Professor, the credentials you gave me for the server we were talking about for the web design stuff for the club, those credentials aren't working. It's saying that I'm not sure what's going on with that, but
it's the WP admin ones.
yeah, let me pull it up real fast and double check. Oh no, sorry, I mean for the actual FTP access, not for the WordPress.
Oh, for FTP. Okay, I'll give that a shot too and see what's going on. Okay, cool. Okay. All right, go for it. Okay, so I've posted a page with all the FTP information. I put it under the introduction module where, you know, the remind.com and open processing information is. So it'll be at the top whenever you need it. So yeah, that should do it.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So for the coding, so for the background color that I change it according to the mouse. So how I can do like I see yours have like a many colors while I'm moving. So how I can do that?
You're gonna have to use
Just 2 or 3.
you're gonna have to use the color mode, change the color mode to HSB.
Oh,
Like I did before. If you change the color mode to HSB, then all you have to adjust, remember, if you use HSB, it takes 3 numbers. The first number is the hue, which is like the actual color that it is. The second number is saturation, and the third number is brightness. So if you use the mouse to adjust the hue and just leave saturation and brightness as like 100 or whatever you want, then you know all you have to do is adjust the hue just in one place to make changes to the color.
okay, I'm gonna do that.
Got it? All right. Good job, Jared. You're fast.
Thank you.
Perfect, Kelsey.
Professor, so for the changing gradient, we just have to slow it down.
Yeah, slow it down a little bit. So it takes some more time to get, you know, to change across the screen.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Just a little practice in math.